What's going on, young elder gang? This is Dr. Charles P. Winston, at you with another banger. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, fam. Hit that like and bell for us. Come back to check with us every day for new content. All right, let's go in. You need to hear this if you're a history or law student. Meet Hammurabi, the king with a code that changed everything. As we go through this, I want you to keep in mind about the word code. A code is a program. More than 3,800 years ago, King Hammurabi of Babylon established one of the earliest and most comprehensive legal codes. Known as the Code of Hammurabi, these laws were inscribed on massive stone pillars for all to see. Hammurabi's code covered everything from property rights to criminal behavior. Some laws may surprise you. For instance, if someone falsely accused another of a crime, the false accuser could be put to death, and if a judge made a mistake, they had to pay 12 times the fine and were banned from judging ever again. This ancient legal system aimed to bring order and justice to Babylon. Hammurabi declared that the strong might not oppress the weak. Quite the dramatic twist for the ancient world, don't you think? So next time you think about law and order, remember it all started with Hammurabi. When Anu, the most highest god of the Anunnaki, called Raziel I and Baal, son Enlil, the Lord of Heaven, who decreed the fate of the land, assigned to Marduk, the overruling son of Enki, god of righteousness, dominion over earthly man, and made him great among the Igigi. They called Babylon by his illustrious name, made it great on earth, and founded an everlasting kingdom in it, whose foundations are laid so solidly as those of heaven and earth. Then Anu and Baal called by name me, Hammurabi, the exalted prince who feared God, to bring about the rule of righteousness in the land, to destroy the wicked and the evildoers, so that the strong should not harm the weak, so that I should rule over the black-headed people like Shamash, and enlighten the land, to further the well-being of mankind. Hammurabi is a descendant of Enlil through his son Endowed, who had the title Bel or Baal, which means Lord or Yahweh. Hammurabi the prince called of Baal, Adad am I, making riches and increase, enriching Nippur and Durilu beyond compare, sublime patron of Ekur. The Ekur, also called Duranki, was a sacred temple in the city of Nippur, Mesopotamia, dedicated to the god Enlil. The name Ekur means mountain temple in Sumerian. The Ekur was believed to have been built by Enlil himself. The temple was described as a place where the heavens and earth met. The first forms of a ziggurat. A ziggurat is a type of massive structure built in ancient Mesopotamia. It has the form of a terraced compound of successively receding stories or levels, a rectangular stepped tower, sometimes surmounted by a temple. Hammurabi re-established Eridu and purified the worship of E-Apsu. The Apsu or E-Abzu was the temple of Enki, son of the most highest god Anu. Also known as Ea, Enki founded the city of Eridu. His temple was called E-Abzu, and another name for the temple was Esira. Hammurabi conquered the 4 quarters of the world, made great the name of Babylon, rejoiced the heart of Marduk, his lord, who daily pays his devotions in Sagil. Keep in mind, Marduk is also called Amun in ancient Egyptian culture. Also keep in mind that Mesopotamia, the America, and parts of Asia were considered as part of ancient Kemet or Egypt. Sagil is an ancient city located in southern Mesopotamia on the lower Euphrates River. The city was the center of the Esagila complex, which was completed by Nebuchadnezzar II. The Esagila complex included a large court, a smaller court, and a central shrine that contained statues of Marduk and Sarpanit, who is Marduk's wife. The royal scion, whom Nannar-Sin made. Nannar-Sin is Baal, Adad's brother. Nannar-Sin is Enlil's son, who enriched the city of Ur, the humble, the reverent, who brings wealth to Gish-Shir-Gal. The White King heard of Shamash the mighty, who again laid the foundations of Sippara. Gish-Shir-Gal was the name of a temple complex in Ur that was dedicated to Nanna, the Mesopotamian god of the moon. The name translates to House of Great Light. Sippar was an ancient city in northern Babylonia, located on the Euphrates River in what is now southeast Iraq. Sippar was one of the largest and oldest cities in Akkad and was located above Babylon near the north line of Akkad. Hammurabi clothed the gravestones of Malkat with green. who made E-Baba great, which is like the heavens, the warrior who guarded Lhasa and renewed E-Baba, with Shamash as his helper. Malkata is the site of an ancient Egyptian palace complex built during the New Kingdom by the 18th dynasty pharaoh Amenhotep III. It is located on the west bank of the Nile at Thebes, Upper Egypt, in the desert to the south of Medinet Habu. E-Baba was the name of a temple in Mesopotamia dedicated to the sun god Shamash, also known as Utu. E-Baba, the House of Splendor, the temple of the city god Shamash, the sun god which was called E-Babara by the Sumerians, Bitun by the Semites. Lhasa, one of the ancient capital cities of Babylonia, located about 20 miles, 32 kilometers, southeast of Uruk, Erech, Arabic Tal al-Waqar, in southern Iraq. Located in southern Iraq, Lhasa was an ancient capital of Babylonia and an important city-state in Sumer. It was the center of the cult of the sun god Utu and is thought to be the source of several Babylonian mathematics tablets. The city was at its height during the reign of Rim-Sin, who is considered the longest ruling monarch in Mesopotamian history. Hammurabi richly endowed E-Mach, the protecting king of the city, brother of the god Zamama. E-Mach was the guide of Hammurabi, the Babylonian king who proclaimed the Code of Hammurabi. The Code of Hammurabi was one of the earliest and most complete written legal codes. Zababa, a war god and tutelary deity of Kish, Zababa was depicted with an eagle on top of a standard. During Hammurabi's reign, Zababa was considered the primary warrior god in the state pantheon. Zababa was a god with temples in Kish, Ur, Tabira, and Assur. He was also said to appear in Babylon during the city's Akitu festival. In a hymn, Zababa was listed as one of the deities responsible for Hammurabi's success. Hammurabi firmly founded the farms of Kish, crowned E-Mach with glory, redoubled the great holy treasures of Inanna, managed the temple of Hasag Kalama. E-Mach is a cella dedicated to the god Zababa in texts. The name translates to house worthy of the hero. E-Mach, the temple of the war god Zamama, the grave of the enemy whose help brought about the victory, who increased the power of Cutha and made all glorious in Ishidlam, the black steer. Cutha was a city in Mesopotamia and a holy site in ancient times. It's mentioned in the Bible in 2 Kings 17, 24 and 30, and is associated with the worship of Nergal, son of Enki, the god of the underworld. Ishidlam is a black steer that gored the enemy and was beloved by the god Nabu, son of Marduk, according to the Code of Hammurabi. Hammurabi gored the enemy, beloved of the god Nabu, son of Marduk, who rejoiced the inhabitants of Borsippa the Sublime, who is indefatigable for Izida. Borsippa, southwest of Babylon, on the east bank of the Euphrates. It lies 15 kilometers from the ancient site of Dilbat. The god of wisdom's temple, Ezida, was at the opposite end of the royal citadel TT to the palace, next to the city governor's residence. It gained in importance over the 8th century BC and King Sargon II, the divine king of the city, the White Wise, who broadened the fields of Dilbat, who heaped up the harvests for Urash, the mighty, the lord to whom comes scepter and crown with which he clothes himself, the elect of Mama, who fixed the temple bounds of Kesh, who made rich the holy feasts of Nintu, daughter of Anu. Uras, Sumerian, Romanized Duras, or Urash, was a Mesopotamian goddess regarded as the personification of the earth. Urash is one of Anu's wives. Nintu, or Mother Ninti, is a name for the Mesopotamian mother goddess Ninhursag, who was a key deity in ancient Mesopotamian religion. She is also called Hathor in ancient Egypt. Urash's mother Ninti, mother. She's not to be mistaken with her niece Mami, also known as Bele Ili or Nintu, is a goddess in the Babylonian epic Atrahasis and in other creation legends. Bele is Enki daughter, Marduk twin sister. She was of the nurses who came down with Mother Ninti. Keep in mind Nintu, Mami also these terms can be titles. So, more than one person could have this name or title. Also, Mother Ninti has a son by her brother Enlil, named Ninurtu. The Provident, Solicitus, who provided food and drink for Lagash and Girsu, who provided large sacrificial offerings for the temple of Ningirsu. Lagash was an ancient city-state located northwest of the junction of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers and east of Uruk, about 22 kilometers east of the modern town of Al-Shatra, Iraq. Lagash was one of the oldest cities of the ancient Near East. Girsu was a city of ancient Sumer, situated some 25 kilometers northwest of Lagash, at the site of what is now Tel Tello in Dekar Governorate, Iraq. As the religious center of the kingdom of Lagash, it contained significant temples to the god Ningirsu and his wife Baal, and hosted multi-day festivals in their honor. Girsu was Ninutu's city and abode. Hammurabi captured the enemy, the elect of the oracle who fulfilled the prediction of Halab, who rejoiced the heart of Anunit. Anunit is a Mesopotamian goddess and consort of Enu, the Babylonian creator god. She was also known as Antu. Antu is Enlil's mother. Hammurabi, the pure prince, whose prayer is accepted by Endowed, Enlil's son, who is also carry the title Baal, who satisfied the heart of Endowed, the warrior in Karkar, who restored the vessels for worship in Eud Galgal, the king who granted life to the city of Adab, the guide of E-Mach, the princely king of the city, the irresistible warrior who granted life to the inhabitants of Mashkan Shabri, and brought abundance to the temple of Shidlam, the white, potent who penetrated the secret cave of the bandits, saved the inhabitants of Malka from misfortune, and fixed their home fast in wealth, who established pure sacrificial gifts for Enki and Damgalnunna. Damgalnunna, also known as Damkina, was a Mesopotamian goddess and the wife of the god Enki. Damkina also is Marduk and Bele's mother. She was associated with ritual purification and was believed to intercede with Enki on behalf of supplicants. Damgalnunna was worshipped in the cities of Eridu and Maljim, as well as in Nippur, Sippar and Kalhu. She is also believed to have been incorporated into the Hurrian pantheon as early as the 3rd millennium BCE, who made his kingdom everlastingly great, the princely king of the city who subjected the districts on the Ud-Kib-Nunna canal to the sway of Dagon, his creator, who spared the inhabitants of Mera and Tutul, the sublime prince who makes the face of Nini shine, who presents holy meals to the divinity of Ninazu, who cared for its inhabitants in their need, provided a portion for them in Babylon in peace. The shepherd of the oppressed and of the slaves, whose deeds find favor before Anunit, who provided for Anunit in the temple of Dumash in the suburb of Agad, who recognizes the right, who rules by law, who gave back to the city of Asher its protecting god, who let the name of Ishtar of Nineveh remain in Emishmish, the sublime, who humbles himself before the great gods, successor of Sumula-Il, the mighty son of Sin-Mubalit, the royal scion of eternity, the mighty monarch, the son of Babylon, whose rays shed light over the land of Sumer and Akkad, the king obeyed by the 4 quarters of the world, beloved of Nini am I, when Marduk sent me to rule over men, to give the protection of right to the land. I did right and righteousness in and brought about the well-being of the oppressed. Code of laws. 1. If anyone ensnare another, putting a ban upon him, but he cannot prove it, then he that ensnared him shall be put to death. 2. If anyone bring an accusation against a man, and the accused go to the river and leap into the river, if he sink in the river, his accuser shall take possession of his house. But if the river prove that the accused is not guilty, and he escape unhurt, then he who had brought the accusation shall be put to death, while he who leapt into the river shall take possession of the house that had belonged to his accuser. 3. If anyone bring an accusation of any crime before the elders, and does not prove what he has charged, he shall, if it be a capital offence charged, be put to death. 4. If he satisfy the elders to impose a fine of grain or money, he shall receive the fine that the action produces. 5. If a judge try a case, reach a decision, and present his judgment in writing. If later error shall appear in his decision, and it be through his own fault, then he shall pay 12 times the fine set by him in the case, and he shall be publicly removed from the judge's bench, and never again shall he sit there to render judgment. 6. If anyone steal the property of a temple or of the court, he shall be put to death, and also the one who receives the stolen thing from him shall be put to death. 1. If anyone buy from the son or the slave of another man, without witnesses or a contract, silver or gold, a male or female slave, an ox or a sheep, an ass or anything, or if he take it in charge, he is considered a thief and shall be put to death. 1. If anyone steal cattle or sheep, or an ass, or a pig or a goat, if it belong to a god or to the court, the thief shall pay 30-fold therefore. If they belong to a freed man of the king, he shall pay 10-fold. If the thief has nothing with which to pay, he shall be put to death. 1. If anyone lose an article, and find it in the possession of another, if the person in whose possession the thing is found say, "A merchant sold it to me, I paid for it before witnesses," and if the owner of the thing say, "I will bring witnesses who know my property," then shall the purchaser bring the merchant who sold it to him, and the witnesses before whom he bought it, and the owner shall bring witnesses who can identify his property. The judge shall examine their testimony, both of the witnesses before whom the price was paid, and of the witnesses who identify the lost article on oath. The merchant is then proved to be a thief and shall be put to death. The owner of the lost article receives his property, and he who bought it receives the money he paid from the estate of the merchant. 1. If the purchaser does not bring the merchant and the witnesses before whom he bought the article, but its owner bring witnesses who identify it, then the buyer is the thief and shall be put to death, and the owner receives the lost article. 2. If the owner do not bring witnesses to identify the lost article, he is an evildoer, he has traduced and shall be put to death. 3. If the witnesses be not at hand, then shall the judge set a limit at the expiration of 6 months. If his witnesses have not appeared within the 6 months, he is an evildoer, and shall bear the fine of the pending case. 1. If anyone steal the minor son of another, he shall be put to death. 2. If anyone take a male or female slave of the court, or a male or female slave of a freed man, outside the city gates, he shall be put to death. 3. If anyone receive into his house a runaway male or female slave of the court, or of a freedman, and does not bring it out at the public proclamation of the major domus, the master of the house shall be put to death. 4. If anyone find runaway male or female slaves in the open country and bring them to their masters, the master of the slaves shall pay him 2 shekels of silver. 1. If the slave will not give the name of the master, the finder shall bring him to the palace. A further investigation must follow, and the slave shall be returned to his master. 2. If he hold the slaves in his house, and they are caught there, he shall be put to death. 3. If the slave that he caught run away from him, then shall he swear to the owners of the slave, and he is free of all blame. 4. If anyone break a hole into a house, break in to steal, he shall be put to death before that hole and be buried. 5. If anyone is committing a robbery and is caught, then he shall be put to death. 6. If the robber is not caught, then shall he who was robbed claim under oath the amount of his loss. Then shall the community and on whose ground and territory and in whose domain it was compensate him for the goods stolen. 7. If persons are stolen, then shall the community and pay 1 mina of silver to their relatives. 8. If fire break out in a house and someone who comes to put it out cast his eye upon the property of the owner of the house and take the property of the master of the house, he shall be thrown into that selfsame fire. 9. If a chieftain or a man, common soldier, who has been ordered to go upon the king's highway for war, does not go, but hires a mercenary, if he withholds the compensation, then shall this officer or man be put to death, and he who represented him shall take possession of his house. 10. If a chieftain or man be caught in the misfortune of the king, captured in battle, and if his fields and garden be given to another, and he take possession, if he return and reaches his place, his field and garden shall be returned to him. He shall take it over again. 11. If a chieftain or a man be caught in the misfortune of a king, if his son is able to enter into possession, then the field and garden shall be given to him. He shall take over the fee of his father. 12. If his son is still young and cannot take possession, 1/3 of the field and garden shall be given to his mother, and she shall bring him up. 13. If a chieftain or a man leave his house, garden and field and hires it out, and someone else takes possession of his house, garden and field, and uses it for 3 years, If the first owner return and claims his house, garden, and field, it shall not be given to him, but he who has taken possession of it and used it shall continue to use it. 1. If he hire it out for 1 year and then return, the house, garden, and field shall be given back to him, and he shall take it over again. 2. If a chieftain or a man is captured on the way of the king in war, and a merchant buy him free and bring him back to his place. If he have the means in his house to buy his freedom, he shall buy himself free. If he have nothing in his house with which to buy himself free, he shall be bought free by the temple of his community. If there be nothing in the temple with which to buy him free, the court shall buy his freedom. His field, garden, and house shall not be given for the purchase of his freedom. 3. If a mu or a enter himself as withdrawn from the way of the king, and send a mercenary as substitute, but withdraw him, then the or shall be put to death. 4. If a harm the property of a captain, injure the captain, or take away from the captain a gift presented to him by the king, then the or shall be put to death. 5. If anyone buy the cattle or sheep which the king has given to chieftains from him, he loses his money. 6. The field, garden, and house of a chieftain, of a man, or of one subject to quit rent cannot be sold. 7. If anyone buy the field, garden, and house of a chieftain, man, or one subject to quit rent, his contract tablet of sale shall be broken, declared invalid, and he loses his money. The field, garden, and house return to their owners. 1. A chieftain, man, or one subject to quit rent cannot assign his tenure of field, house, and garden to his wife or daughter, nor can he assign it for a debt. 2. He may, however, assign a field, garden, or house which he has bought and holds as property to his wife or daughter, or give it for debt. 3. He may sell field, garden, and house to a merchant, royal agents, or to any other public official, the buyer holding field, house, and garden for its usufruct. 4. If anyone fence in the field, garden, and house of a chieftain, man, or one subject to quit rent, furnishing the palings therefor. If the chieftain, man, or one subject to quit rent return to field, garden, and house, the palings which were given to him become his property. 5. If anyone take over a field to till it and obtain no harvest therefrom, it must be proved that he did no work on the field, and he must deliver grain, just as his neighbour raised, to the owner of the field. 6. If he do not till the field, but let it lie fallow, he shall give grain like his neighbours to the owner of the field, and the field which he let lie fallow he must plough and sow and return to its owner. 7. If anyone take over a waste-lying field to make it arable, but is lazy and does not make it arable, he shall plough the fallow field in the 4th year, harrow it and till it and give it back to its owner, and for each 10 gan, a measure of area, 10 gur of grain shall be paid. 1. If a man rent his field for tillage for a fixed rental and receive the rent of his field, but bad weather come and destroy the harvest, the injury falls upon the tiller of the soil. 2. If he do not receive a fixed rental for his field, but lets it on half or third shares of the harvest, the grain on the field shall be divided proportionately between the tiller and the owner. 3. If the tiller, because he did not succeed in the first year, has had the soil tilled by others, the owner may raise no objection. The field has been cultivated, and he receives the harvest according to agreement. 4. If anyone owe a debt for a loan, and a storm prostrates the grain, or the harvest fail, or the grain does not grow for lack of water, in that year he need not give his creditor any grain. He washes his debt tablet in water and pays no rent for this year. 5. If anyone take money from a merchant, and give the merchant a field tillable for corn or sesame, and order him to plant corn or sesame in the field and to harvest the crop. If the cultivator plant corn or sesame in the field, at the harvest the corn or sesame that is in the field shall belong to the owner of the field, and he shall pay corn as rent. For the money he received from the merchant, and the livelihood of the cultivator, shall he give to the merchant. 6. If he give a cultivated cornfield or a cultivated sesame field, the corn or sesame in the field shall belong to the owner of the field, and he shall return the money to the merchant as rent.